Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company. We publish over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Westchester, Long Island, and Philadelphia. And today we are thrilled to bring to you from the Philadelphia Museum of Art's craft show, an artist meet and greet. Today, we're going to have a wonderful opportunity to meet with Phil Gautreau, who is a spectacular wood artist that not only creates beautiful works of art, but they're also functional, which is incredible. And we're going to share that with you, and he's going to be able to share his process as well. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the wonderful craft show. This is, as I mentioned, the 44th annual Philadelphia Museum of Art craft show. And this year it is moved to an online event. It is a premier showcase of contemporary craft and design scheduled online for Friday, November 6th through Sunday, November 8th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with a virtual preview on November 5th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And you're going to have an opportunity to see museum quality contemporary craft and design at your fingertips with a simple click from the comfort and safety of your home. How amazing is that? Just like we're having an amazing experience from the comfort of your home or office right here. So please join them for the 44th annual, but first virtual Philadelphia Museum of Art Contemporary Craft Show from November 6th through the 8th. The admission is free with a suggested gift of $10 to support the Philadelphia Museum of Art. There'll be early access to the show available, and there'll be more than 150 of the finest artists in contemporary craft and design from across the country. Categories with clay, fiber, glass, metal, wood, as we have today, plus jewelry, wearables, and furniture. You'll experience live streaming artist demonstrations, artist videos, studio visits, and opportunities to connect to the artists. And the show is presented annually for the benefit of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And today we have a very, very special opportunity to get even more up close and personal with our Brooklyn-based artist, Phil Gautreau. And it really is an honor for me to introduce him to you. So welcome, Phil, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. I appreciate being here. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I can see already you're in your workshop.
Yeah, it's unusual to be participating in one of these. I've watched so many of them since COVID, but kind of fun to be able to do that. I know that at several of the shows, people often will ask me about the shop, the process, the setup. And so it's kind of nice to be able to give people a quick peek inside the shop. Actually, if you wouldn't mind, I could take the camera outside for just a second and show you from the outside coming in, tour you through the shop for a minute or two. And
I'll speak for myself and all the attendees. We'd love it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this. All right. Bear with me.
Yeah, absolutely. As we can see, we're walking through the wood shop. What can you tell us as you're walking out?
Well, I'm actually heading on my way out of the shop. And
where in Brooklyn are you?
This is a section of, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. This is a section of Brooklyn called.
Oop, Phil, you froze.
Large building. Back in the day, these used to be a lot of textile manufacturing buildings. And in our shop, it actually used to be an old sweater factory. So they've converted that initially to office space. And then more recently, when we moved in, it was converted for our specific needs for a wood shop. So you can see here a loading dock. And then I'll just quickly walk you through. The shop is a community shop, so that there are people who are here on membership and then come in on an hourly basis. It's set up such that there are a number of people that it's limited the number of people so that as you're using equipment, you're not really necessarily having to wait to use equipment. And specifically because of COVID, just making sure that there's appropriate social distancing. So this will be a quick, clean sweep of the full space.
Just say the name of the place in Brooklyn that you are in, because we lost your audio for just a split second.
Okay, sure. It's a section called Gowanus. People may know the term Gowanus from the Gowanus Canal. That's usually the reference. The Gowanus Canal was built specifically because there were so many factories along the river that were needing to get deliveries as well as have finished product picked up. And so the Gowanus is still there. It's been designated for the last 20 plus years as a Superfund site. And thankfully, we now have funding that's been released so that the actual cleanup has begun. So yeah, so just starting here, just a chop saw right ahead is just a lumber storage area, and then a variety of different lockers all along this whole wall. A couple of table saws. This right here is, you can see, is a full air evacuation of vacuum system that's tied in with each of the machines so that it gathers the dust as much as possible from the air and prevents that from getting into people's lungs. Got some band saws right here. It's called a jointer right here. Router table. Belt sander. Got a drill press. Planer and jointer. And then what I'm going to do is walk you through a separate space here that is the student shop. A lot of what the shop does is I think there's probably a dozen different types of classes, going from intro to woodworking to some things that are a bit more sophisticated, like use of hand tools or steam bending, or more focused on things like if someone wants to come in and just learn more about table saw safety skills, then they can do that. But this is a separate space for it, so that you can get maybe 3 students, 4 students at a time in here. And you're basically getting people, the majority of the people are kind of weekend warriors, people who have professional jobs and who just want a little bit of diversion from that. And
you used to do some teaching too, right, Phil? You used to do some of that.
Exactly. I'm just, before we do that, this is kind of of all the storage area, these 2 are mine. You can see a lot of the smaller pieces for the wood serving boards that I've got, and then some of the bowl blanks down here for the bowls that I turn. But yeah, that was kind of no mistakes
That
yet.
was great. That was great. That was really nice to see that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, but in answer to your question, I was in health administration for 25 years. So I'm one of that group of people who are, I would say, largely self-taught. I've taken several classes through the years, intro class at other wood shops, and then wood turning, initial wood turning stuff, and then more sophisticated bowl turning classes through the years. And then at other points, I've actually taught bowl turning as well. But yeah, my career training was in health administration. I moved from Portland, Maine for graduate work at Columbia in public health, and have lived and worked in the New York City metropolitan area for the last, I guess it would be 35 years. And as I said, worked in health administration for 25 years of that. And then leaving that position when I was about 50, it was the type of thing where I'd really loved the career for so long, never had intended to leave it, and got progressively more responsible positions through the years. And at a certain point, I guess, at a certain age, I just felt like I could either keep doing this for another 15 years or really jump ship and do something that was starting to become very, very, very much a passion and a source of a lot of enjoyment for me, which is woodworking. And so at maybe a year or so before I decided to leave, I started taking more and more classes, spending more time outside of the shop. And then I started talking with my financial advisor about the possibility of, is it possible financially for me to do this? And so in the time that he and I had been working together, which is for most of my career, I've had, with his encouragement, saved enough to be able to put myself in a financial position to, at 50, say, I want to do this. I know it's not going to be as lucrative, but it's time. It's not time for a job change. It's time for a career change. So here I am so many years later.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
that really takes such strength to be able to look into yourself and say, you know what, I want to pursue my passion. Life is too short.
Yeah.
And kudos to you. That's really incredible.
Thanks.
And yeah. So how did you get started in woodworking?
Well, sort of going back many, many more years is my dad and his father actually built the house that we were all born and brought up in Rhode Island. My dad still lives there. He's 93 years old.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. So my grandfather was a designer and finished carpenter, and my dad was more in management, but then became a chemist. And so, but earlier on, he and his brothers were very handy. And so that was back in the day when people actually did build houses and had the skills to do them. My grandfather had moved from Canada, and with a group of other people, as I said, we're able to do some building in our community. But yeah, so we always had a wood shop in the basement, and whenever things had needed repair, if there was a broken window, rather than throwing the whole frame out and getting a new window, these were wooden frames, custom made, glass bought, putty around the sides, glaze it, and paint it. It was repaired. And so that was kind of
an art. It sounds like it was an art. It wasn't just an errand to do, or it was an art.
You know what? It's funny you put it that way. I think in this day and age, it would be perceived that way. In the day that it was, back in the day when it was built, I think it was built by people who, not so much my dad's age, but my grandfather's age. They were Depression era people. My dad on the tail end of it, I guess, now thinking of it. And so you didn't really have the luxury of just kind of going out and getting something new all of the time. Something either got dented or was warped. It was back in the day when people changed their own oil on their cars and things like that. You kind of took care of things because you knew the useful life was going to be a substantially longer amount of time than what we've become used to in this world, as with kind of a lot of conspicuous consumption, a lot of planned obsolescence. And so, every couple of years, we're all replacing our iPhones. I'm guilty of it. But technology is changing that fast. And so it's changed the way that we look at a lot of things, tangible things around us. And I think part of that really still has an impact now on the arts, is that, I think as artists, we sort of see ourselves as fairly well grounded in making something, hopefully, of permanence, whether it's jewelry or a fiber art or some beautiful glassware or pottery or woodworking. I think it's something that it's looked upon as hopefully something that's going to be timeless and made by hand. I mean, there are very, very few things that truly someone can say, not only did I conceive it, design it, but I also built it with my two hands. So now got the vacuum system on. So I may So there may become a time when I may shift to another room if it gets a little bit too loud. So bear with me.
Yeah, no problem.
The nature of a community shop.
No, no problem at all. No problem at all. So what would you say? So obviously now, you learned about woodworking from your father, your grandfather. What is your why? What is the passion that drives you as an artist?
I get, part of it is variety. I love being able to explore new ways in which I use wood, and there are two real avenues of where my woodworking goes. I'm just going to move a little bit. And so most of my woodworking is really about wood turning. And I'll show you a lathe in just a second, and maybe a sample of some of the work that I've done. But the other one is type of woodworking that I got involved in just kind of haphazardly, I guess, is that because I'm in a wood shop and there are a number of wood workers that are furniture builders, there's a lot of excess wood. Even from the woodworking shop, you can see that there's just lots of scraps and different areas where you've got smaller pieces of wood that are of absolutely no value to anybody. So I got into doing serving boards, and that's become a substantial part of my business. I'm now in 60 stores, and they're carrying a lot of my pieces. And so the passion, I guess, is just in evolving the business with a medium wood that is popular among people and hopefully ever changing. So for the wood boards, it's looking at different shapes, different types of species of wood. For the bowls, again, really finding really visually interesting pieces of wood, finding very interesting shapes. In some cases, hopefully making them functional, but at the very, very least, all of them very beautiful and one-of-a-kind pieces. So yeah, it just comes from
if I showed a couple of pictures?
Sure. I've actually got a couple of bowls, or maybe a handful of bowls that I brought in. And
can I show people a couple pictures?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So here is one beautiful piece.
Yeah, that is one of the square wood boards. It's still a very, very popular style. Introduced that a couple of years ago. I would say half of the stores that carry my pieces carry the square boards. That's a wood type called sapele. It looks very much like mahogany, more sustainably grown. And all of my finishes are food safe, VOC free food finish.
Nice. Let me show. Love that.
Right. So this is a great example, and kudos to the photographer who took this and many of my other pictures. Gentleman's name is Sean McCormick. He was in the New York City area. He was in Brooklyn, actually 2 doorways down from us. And I was lucky enough to be able to work with him. He's really someone who's very intuitive about my work and really got the way in which I want the pieces captured. But this piece in particular really is very representational of the type of work, which is using maple burl. I love maple burl. I'll show you a couple of more recent pieces that are going to be in the Philly show. But these are maple burl, shallow bowls. People use them as platters. But I feel like maple burl is so rare and so rich in texture. Because the burl is really kind of when a burl grows on a tree, it's really a sign that it's the tree's defense to try to heal itself, whether it's from insect infestation or disease or some sort of rot. And the tree tries to intuitively grow around that area. And it creates these beautiful lines that make the wood very attractive and give you a palette of something to use to create something beautiful. I've actually got, I don't know if you have any more pictures, but do you have any more pictures?
I do if you want, or did you want to show something now?
Let me just, let me just show currently what I've
Right?
got.
You get to see something right there in the workshop. That's incredible.
Yeah, and which is rare. I mean, usually, again, we're in Brooklyn. It's a limited size. It's a large shop, but it's still limited. So it's a work area, and so um, the general rule here is that when you're through with whatever piece you're working on, you really need to get it out of the shop. And so mine come home with me, and they go into storage until we go to the next show, or I'm fulfilling an order for a customer. So these are pieces that I've finished, I would say, within the last month. It's a sample of some of the pieces I've got, but two. So for the wood burl pieces, we've got, let's see if I can, am I getting this? Here we go.
Yeah.
Hold on now. So this is a smallish piece.
That's so gorgeous. So let me ask you something about that. So that is wood that has wood, a special kind of wood that grows around it to protect the tree?
Yeah, if you have seen occasionally, a tree where it's got
Wow, that's
something that,
gorgeous, Phil. That is gorgeous.
isn't this sweet? Yeah,
Gorgeous.
yeah. This is sort of, I always have, a couple of real statement pieces at every show, and this will be one that I'm sure, a collector or someone who's really already got a couple of pieces of mine or some other maple burl pieces, I'm sure is going to pick up. This is a wood called flame quilted maple, and
Wow.
this design really is, it's really carved out inside, and then this type of thing is much more decorative, same as this. And then just some walnut pieces, small sizes. This is a wood, it's a crazy wood,
Wow.
claro. I don't know if you can see the detail in that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And then another
It reminds me of
platter.
a zebra. It makes me think of a zebra.
What's that?
It makes me think of a zebra.
Exactly right. Yeah, the stripes are really beautiful in it. So it's just, it's, I don't know if you're getting that. I'm sorry. Whoops. All right.
It's really a
We'll
once in a
stop. We'll, we'll,
lifetime
we'll,
chance.
we'll stop while we're ahead on those.
It's a once in a lifetime chance to see it right there in the wood shop.
Right.
So what do you do with the wood imperfections?
Um, where there are wood imperfections, and whether it's a spalt line is sometimes what you'd have is like a black line that's streaking through the wood. You may have seen what that is basically fungus that as the tree has gone down and maybe laid in the forest or wherever it's growing and hasn't been harvested right away. There will oftentimes be some water within the fibers that starts to get moldy. And then finally, when it's harvested, that has turned black and then solidified. Let me just take a look in my locker and see if I've got an example of something.
Okay. I'm going to let everyone know too, what was very interesting in learning about Phil was this belief about, build and repair versus discard and replace philosophy. And I think, you touched a little bit upon that when we were talking about, your grandfather fixing the windows, and, really can see in your art that, and just also talking about what happens at the studio where, people discard wood, but it's not about discarding. It's about, creating from that and replacing and repairing and creating new art.
Absolutely. And just, trying to use use the products that you've got in front of you to really try to bring out the beauty of them to the extent possible. So in terms of spalting or spalt lines, this is an example. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, it almost looks like marble.
Yeah, like this. And then on the sides here. So that's one example of when I use the term figuring. Figuring is really any kind of grain pattern or any coloring or discoloration in the wood that makes it unique and interesting. The irony is that most woodworkers, when they are making a piece of furniture or building something to spec shelving, whatever. They're really looking for clean wood. They want clean, straight grain. They're not looking for this type of wood. So it's perfect for me because that's exactly what I'm looking for, is something that's got some character, something that's off, something that's in the course of its life picked up through pulling minerals up from the specific type of dirt that it's growing into, having been stormed down, or like I said, having with burl, having some insect infestation or disease or some element from the outside affect it during its lifetime. I love using that type of wood because you can then focus on really bringing out all the imperfections of that wood.
Wow, it's really about the beauty is in the imperfections.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
It's not about being perfect. It's about finding that beauty.
Yeah, and and the interesting thing is, I am in touch with a lot of people, and they know I'm doing woodworking, and they'll say, oh, I've got a tree that came down in the back of my yard, or um, it's there's no shortage of wood. It's what's much more rare is getting wood that's interesting. I'm not a production turner. I don't do salad bowls, or most of my turning is more decorative, but with the ability in some cases, depending on the design, to use it as something functional for things that have a peel or a wrapper or a shell. But there are people that can take a piece of wood that's clean, if you will, and we'll be making things that are going to be used for every day. That's not who I am. I'm making one of a kind, very unique, very unusual statement pieces that people are going to want to put on their cocktail table or dining room table or a shelf and really highlight that. They may use it occasionally, but it's not going to be its primary purpose. Unlike a lot of the serving boards that I make that obviously are meant to be used, hopefully, as much as possible.
Sorry, I'm muted. You said that I got a little excited. You said that sometimes people let you know about a tree coming down, but where do you typically get your wood from that you do?
Yeah, I tell you, it comes from a number of different places. With the bowls and vases and platters that I do, I would say if it's maple burl, the likelihood is that it's coming from the Pacific Northwest. They've got a huge forested area in Oregon and Portland, primarily of old growth big red leaf maple. And a lot of that has burl in it. And so I've been successful in creating relationships with a couple of sellers there. And they've supplied me with a very consistently good quality burl piece with good pieces. And when I say good pieces, the coloring and the consistency of burl and figuring throughout the entire piece. I think people will look at a piece of wood and sometimes it has a little section of burl or it has a little section of flame quilting. By flame, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see the design in that. So that ribbony, that ripply type of effect is what's called flame quilting. Some people call it curly. It's flame quilted maple or curly maple. But that kind of stuff is I'm sourcing that from the Pacific Northwest, sometimes upstate New York, sometimes from Vermont. I'll be getting some walnut. Occasionally, I've been working now with the Brooklyn Botanic Garden for probably the last 6 or 7 years. I get a lot of cherry from them. And in their case, it's a large area. They're only a mile away from my shop. So they've got things that are coming down. They've got old growth trees, so they're coming down in storms. They're getting diseased. The arborists are occasionally trimming the limbs. And so I get wood from them, and they love being able to take the finished pieces, the bowls or vases, and then give them as gifts to their capital campaign donors, their board members, and then whatever remains of the wood that they've harvested for me, they'll put in their gift store. So it's kind of a nice match that they're able to use that. But that's one of the fewer places locally that I get wood for turning. A lot of the wood that I use for the boards, for the serving boards, As I shown here is a good example of some of the smaller pieces.
Mhm.
But you can see these are, I mean, a piece can be, as small as something like this, but most of these are excess pieces from other furniture builders in the shop. They really don't have a use for those pieces. Their goal is to get their larger piece out the door, and then when they've got these smaller pieces, they are just ready to get rid of them, and so I'm able to put them to use. And that's a lot of the wood that goes into the wood boards. If I've got a large order for a store, I will supplement that with obviously larger pieces that I'm buying at a lumber yard, and I use a number of different lumber yards locally to get that as well.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experience at the Philadelphia Museum of Art Craft Show. How many years have you shown there?
So you got to keep me aware of time because I could just talk and talk forever.
I want you to tell me a little about the craft show. I want to get to a couple of questions and then we're going to have to let you go. I mean, I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, same here. This is my 7th year. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I thought it was 6, and then I looked back online. So my first show there was 2014, and
when you really started, when you made the leap. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was very happy to, it's a very prestigious show, and I'm sure the more people that you talk to, I think if you talk to any of the patrons, people in Philly know the Philly Museum of Art Craft Show. It's got a great reputation. I believe this will be maybe their 45th or 46th year. So now you're getting a second generation of people. Their parents may really appreciate craft. Now they're younger, getting married, they're having their first home, and they're looking to, embellish their homes with some handmade pieces. So it's a very interesting show in that way. Philly, for some reason, is in a good way, very, very art appreciative, very wood appreciative. And so you get a lot of very interesting but intelligent questions when people are coming in. They know something about wood and they want to interact with you about it. But at the end of the day, all artists who are selling their pieces at retail shows, there are really a small handful of shows that are aspirational, that every artist, if they can get in, they want to get into. And the Philadelphia Museum show is one of those shows. So I consider myself very blessed and grateful that my work has been good enough to be selected for the last 7 years.
Wow, that's incredible and wonderful. Now that people, even if you can't be in Philadelphia, can enjoy it. That's the positive out of the negative, is that having the show virtual really allows even more people to join. So let me ask these questions that we have from the attendees. Randy asked, do the imperfections in the wood affect the care or the wear of the wood?
I try to make sure that whatever imperfections there are in them are stabilized. Give you an example of that. Hold on. So back to this big platter, right? As you can see here, this whole area is bark, right? Tree bark that has, in the course of its life, fallen probably onto the root area, and the tree has grown around it, and this just becomes incorporated. Now, if I were to have not stabilized that, meaning getting some epoxy or glue and then filling that in with sawdust and really getting it to meld into the wood, if I hadn't stabilized that, those pieces would just eventually, to Randy's question, fall out and just become brittle and not be part of the bowl anymore. Because I stabilize it and then I finish it with a nice finish and sandpaper, then it stays stable overnight, over time for the most part.
Okay, great. So Lisa Beth wants to know, will you be debuting new pieces for the PMA craft show?
I'm sorry, repeat.
Will you be debuting new pieces at the craft show, at the PMA craft show?
I will. Some of them you've seen. So the
Don't tell
pre
anyone. Don't tell
That's
anyone.
it. Yeah. The preview. But one of the new pieces I started making for a client recently. He asked for this. This is a show, actually, a store in Pittsburgh. He asked back in fall for me to create a large 16-inch platter with a very, very small lip, a true platter, so fully flat with just like a 1/4-inch lip on the side. And I made one for him, and it ended up being a lot more work than I'd anticipated. And then he came back to me and said, I'd love 2 more. The first one sold right away. And I just finished those 2, and they were still an equal amount of work, and I needed to adjust the price accordingly. But they're really, really beautiful pieces. I've never shown them. And I've decided that I'm going to make some of those for the show. Here's the challenge, tying back into what you said about things being virtual, is that it's a bit of a curse and a blessing. For me, it's a blessing because it can expands the number of people that this can reach. A bit of a curse because my pieces are so tactile, and people, when they see me in a booth at a show, pick it up. They want, it's visually stunning to be seen in person. It's another thing to try to represent that in an image. And I do the best I can, both with my own photography as well as working with a professional photographer, but there's just nothing like seeing something in person. And so, I pine for the day when we can actually get back to doing shows. In the meantime, virtual is as good as we can get. And then for anyone who's in the areas where my stores are, and they're listed on my website, you can see them in person there as well.
Phil, what is your website? Because I'm going to put it on the chat too.
Sure, it's www, and my name, Phil, Phil, Gautreau, .net.
.net, perfect. Is that the best way for people to contact you? Because Jennifer.
It is. Yeah, there's a contact page, and so shoot me a quick email. My phone number's on there. If you want to text or call, that's perfect too.
And do you do commission work as well?
I do. There are some pieces of furniture that I've done in the past. Nothing in the immediate. In the last 6 or 9 months. Most of the boards that I do for the stores are commissioned pieces. So there's, they'll put in a minimum order of, let's say, 12 to 15, sometimes 20 pieces. The bowls, I have to tell you, it's a bit more difficult to do a commission on a bowl unless the client is bringing you the piece of wood and they know the piece of wood already. For them to have seen a bowl and really loved it, but know it's sold, and then say, I'd really like something like that, their expectation is going to be, it's that, not like that. And so I've had a couple of clients that I've tried to replicate as close as possible. So for that reason, and they've not been as satisfied as I wanted and hoped that they'd be. So for that reason, I don't really do commissioned pieces for the hand-turned pieces. But if people understand that it's going to be similar, but it can't be something that they've already fallen in love with, then I'll do that.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's art. How could it be exactly the same? Let's ask one more question, because as I said, I could talk to you all day, but I have to respect everyone's time. Laura wants to know, what's the best way to care for your pieces at home?
Sure. I make my own board cream, and that I sell. I give it to the people who are buying wholesale at the stores, and then I also have jars of it that I sell. That'll be online as well. But the combination of beeswax and mineral oil is really what I think is the best for my pieces. It keeps the wood moist, keeps them clean and buffed. They just look like they're brand new. You should also, for the many of us who have wooden utensils, wood salad bowls, anything in your home that really needs to be, that's used on a regular basis, that needs to be moistened and kept moist, you can use the same product. It's 30% beeswax and 70% mineral oil. It's a nice cream. It's probably the consistency of like a Vaseline, and you just buff it on and it just brings the grain right up.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's really been a wonderful, wonderful time spent. I want to remind people that the 44th Annual Philadelphia Museum of Art Craft Show is premiering their showcase online from Friday, November 6th through Sunday, November 8th. from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with a virtual preview on November 5th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can go to their website, www.pmacraftshow.org, and you can see all the artists there and artist contact information there and everything you need to know about the show. Thank you so much, Phil Gautreau. This has been a wonderful time spent. Love to see the art in process. Love to hear about your passion and that you've gone for it. And lucky us, we get to reap the rewards of that. So I thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending. Wonderful to have you here and to support art and to support the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.